Wow, folks, it's spring. This is the harbinger of spring, this guy right here. Now, some people will go ahead and call that black bear weed, but we know it as skunk cabbage. And it's a sign of spring. The groundhog said there was going to be 6 more weeks. Don't believe the groundhog. Believe the skunk cabbage. And the skunk cabbage, when there was snow on this ground just a week ago, this plant right here popped up through the snow because it has the unique ability to be able to create its own heat. As a matter of fact, right inside where the flower is, where my finger's going right now, right in there, if you wait a second, you can feel it's a little bit warmer. It's 15 to 30 degrees warmer than out here. This creates enough heat that it can actually work its way up through the snow. And as soon as it works its way up through the snow, it starts to warm up and it starts to emit the skunky or garlic odor. It warms up the air and those fumes come up from the plant and they start to disperse. And the plant does this because it wants to attract flies. Because normally all winter long, the ground's frozen, everything's frozen. For example, if a deer were to get killed and died during the winter, it would freeze, nothing probably would eat it. But if there were any remains left from, say, coyotes or something like that, we would have the deer in the woods. And when it starts to get warmer, it starts to decompose. And it starts to put a smell out of carrion. And the flies are attracted to carrion. Well, this plant right here, skunk cabbage, creates the smell of carrion to attract the flies so they come in and they go inside this little hood and they're looking for the rotten meat. But when they're in there, they're actually collecting pollen. But those fumes come up, not only do they attract flies, but they attract our largest carnivore in this area, and that's the black bear. And the black bear will be sleeping, hibernating for the winter. It starts to get warm. The skunk cabbage shoots out of the ground. It starts to warm up, starts to emit that odor in the air, and it's just like when you're laying in bed and you take a whiff in and you smell that coffee. You know it's time for breakfast. Well, the bear wakes up, but it has a problem. It hasn't pooped or gone to the bathroom in 4 or 5 months. It's plugged up. It's major constipation. It comes down into the wetlands. It follows its nose. A bear can smell this plant over a mile away, and it will come in here because it knows that that's the relief for its constipation. It comes in, it eats the plant. It eats it, and the chemicals that are in there relieves that foot-long plug in its lower intestine, and it defecates all over the place. Spring begins for the black bear because of this plant. There are other critters that use the heat created by the skunk cabbage, and one is the honeybee. As the honeybee travels from one area to the next, especially on cool mornings, when there's flowering plants out, but it's still very cold, the honeybee's cold-blooded. It will come and it will fly around, and all of a sudden it will come in and it will go into that little hooded area and it will relax in there. It's sort of like being in a warming hut. And it stays in there till its body temperature warms up. And while it's doing that, it's collecting the pollen from the skunk cabbage. And when it's warm enough, it comes out, it flies on to its next nectar source, and eventually another skunk cabbage, and it spreads the pollen, and it's on its way. Nature has an amazing way of being able to be interconnected. Man has used this plant for years. An MD on the WebMD, says that it's been used for pain relief, for relaxation, bronchitis. And scientists are even studying the properties in this plant, the skunk cabbage, for a cure for cancer. They still need to do a lot more research, but this plant, as the leaves come up, and they'll get about this high later in the growing season, they still have that smell. And they have a chemical in there that makes this plant very distasteful for animals such as deer and most other animals. Humans do eat it, but they need to gather the leaves early, boil them, that gets rid of the chemical, and then they're able to eat it in small quantities. If you did not boil it and throw the water out, a number of changes of water, and just ate it raw, it would intensely burn the inside of your mouth, and you'd want to spit it out because it would taste poisonous. It would taste awful. So folks, spring is here, and the skunk cabbage plant is starting to bloom, and it's black bear breakfast for 'em. Folks, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. It's free, and you get to learn about all the things in nature that have been given to us. Folks, I thank you. God bless you. God bless your family. Have a great day. This is the Mose. Mose knows nature.